Hi, everyone. Welcome to Radiant Living, Inspiring Humanity to Thrive. I'm your host, Marisa B. Today, I'd like to welcome manifestation coach Cassandra Raven. Cassandra, yes, she's a manifestation coach, but she deals with Kabbalah and Tree of Life, which I personally find so fascinating. Cassandra, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting to be here.
Yeah, this is wonderful. The first question I have, and I'm sure the audience wants to know, how did you get started in all of this?
Hi, everyone. Marisa B here from Radiant Living. If you like what we're doing and want to keep the conversations going, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know every time we upload a video. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure everybody says that's a long story. I think I sort of started really early in my life, fascinated by energy. And the world as I experienced it as a child was energetic to me. So I was less listening and more feeling. I was less watching and more feeling everything, every experience I had. And I could sense people's energies more than anything else. It was very, very strong for me. And I've always been able to see spirits. I've always been very connected to the spirit worlds. And it's just normal for me. It's just how I am. But I wanted to know, what is it that I'm seeing? What is this energy that I can see radiating from people or shooting up into the sky from churches and mosques and synagogues? What am I seeing here? And it was a question that nobody around me could answer. And so I went on this quest, this search for what is energy? What is this that I'm experiencing? And it really started around about 9 years old. And I'd go to the library and I'd go and take out books on magic, on spiritualism, on energy, anything I could find, based around even witchcraft and all these different topics. And I would just take in all of this information in the books, and I started to play with energy myself. I started to move energy, to manipulate energy, to feel energy and actually push energy out, protect myself energetically. And as I learned these little things, it sort of set me on the path of finding out more and more and more. And when I got to about 19, I discovered Kabbalah some way, somehow. I can't remember. I'd picked up a book, and it was discussed in there. And I sort of pulled that thread, kept chasing that, and pulling that thread. And eventually I found that there were societies that you could join. There were underground groups that existed that, you'd hear about it, but it was in hushed tones. And then I sort of joined forums online and the internet started to come in. And it was then that I found that there were places you could go and learn about these things. Now, that didn't necessarily open many doors for me at first, because at 19, I was considered too young to be learning about these things. And also being a woman, it was difficult to get into these groups and societies because they were largely men only at the time. But I found a few, and then through that, I found some more and then more, and I joined every single society, group, and order that I possibly could. And it was all by snail mail back then. It was all things you'd get through the post, and you'd get this package in the post with your instructions for the month, and you'd follow the rituals and the things. And so that's really how I got into it. So sort of, 25, almost 30 years later, it's just something that's been there for so long. And when I think back to that journey, it was such a magical time. It was such a vibrant, extraordinary time discovering these teachings and discovering that I can find myself within all of this, and I can find out what this energy is, what my energy is all about, what the energy of other people is all about. And it just made everything click into place for me. And I knew really in the first couple of years that this was the lens through which I view life now. And it was so helpful to me in getting through difficult times, in getting to know myself, strengthening myself, sort of clearing blockages that I had, clearing energy that was stuck within me. And it genuinely changed my life. And I know it's very cliche sort of thing to say, but I'm not the person that began studying. I'm a completely different person. And I'm so, so grateful for those teachings. And I learned with different teachers, some in person, some over post, some online. And then I embarked on teaching myself. So it was kind of 2 or 3 years in that my teachers started to say, you should be teaching this. They look at your birth chart and sort of say, oh, you should be doing this. and all the astrology's there. And I sort of reluctantly agreed at the time. But
now, did you start with tarot at first to teach?
Well, tarot is very intrinsically part of Kabbalah. So Kabbalah spelled with a Q is the Kabbalah that I do. And tarot is a really big part of that. It's one of the tools that we use. And it's very woven into Kabbalah as a whole, alongside astrology as well. And I was actually quite dismayed when I realized that I'd have to learn tarot and astrology. Because they're such huge topics. And
You're making me worry. You're making me worry. I know, right? We were talking off camera, right? Because I find it fascinating and I want to join. And now that you're talking astrology, my mind's going like this because I took a 12-week course once and I know nothing. I'm lucky I know what cardinal means. I'm just, when it comes to astrology.
Yeah, I was overwhelmed at first. But when I started to work with the Tree of Life, that's when everything clicked. And suddenly, and I'd been given tarot packs in the past. People had gifted me tarot decks and they didn't make sense to me. It was kind of 78 cards and they all look very similar. They might be beautiful. But I really struggled to learn tarot at first until I knew that it was part of the Tree of Life. And when I learned the Tree of Life and started working with the Tree of Life is something you experience. And so with the tarot tied into that, you experience the tarot cards. And when you experience something, you don't have to memorize it. It's just there. It's in your mind as a memory. So that's how I learned the tarot and astrology as well. Astrology came through experience. And I think it's the most wonderful thing because it's like archetypes and tropes and the things that you joke about. Oh, that person's a Scorpio, therefore they're like this, or that person's a Cancerian, therefore they're that. And it's so often true. There are complexities behind it, there are more detailed information behind it, but for the most part all of those jokes generally are true and they do sort of fit. And again, when you equate it with your experience, when you say, oh yeah, my mum was a Taurus and therefore that's why she was like that, and I'm Aquarius and that's why I'm like this, and and it becomes this sort of learning. It's a learning process where you're learning about yourself, but you have to have a sense of humor along the way. You have to kind of say, oh, that's why I experienced this, that's why people respond to me in that way. And there's nothing more interesting than studying ourselves, right? It's we always go through life saying, why can't I do this? Why can't I have that? Why is that thing so difficult for me? Why is this thing easy for me every time and yet other people struggle? And Kabbalah just answered all of that for me and just made everything slot into place.
Now, you mentioned Kabbalah with a Q. Could you explain a little bit about that? Because there is also Kabbalah with a K, correct?
Yes, and Kabbalah with a C as well. So
Okay.
Kabbalah with a K, when you see it spelled with a K, generally speaking, that denotes the Hebrew Judaic version of Kabbalah. And that version of Kabbalah comes along with the religious aspects of it, and the rituals and the processes that religion entails. And I'm very careful to explain to people that we're not taking those religious aspects of those practices. It's very important that those practices are closed practices within Kabbalah and within the religion. So, it's very important to me to differentiate between those. And thank you for bringing that up. It is important. As far as I understand, the tarot doesn't feature heavily in that. Astrology does. But not so much the tarot. You find that with the Q spelling. And then the C spelling is the Christian version of the Kabbalah.
Okay.
So again, we're looking at sort of more Christianized version of the teachings. So the way that I work with Kabbalah is a non-religious way to work. However, what I do say is that you need to be comfortable with the idea that there is something bigger than us. There is an energy bigger than us, whether you call it universal energy, Mother Nature, God, the universe, you could call it any of those things, it doesn't really matter. But as long as you understand that there is a source of energy, that's what's important. And then also within the teachings, we have what we call the sacrificed God. And you get this in lots of different religions, but you'll have this sacrificed idea of a sacrificed God. And that's an important part of the teaching as well. Now, we can refer to that as the ego sacrificed within us. So it can be the sacrificed God within us. And people often say to me, but what about the goddess? What about the women? And the tree of life, actually, one side of the tree is considered to be masculine energy, the other side of the tree considered to be feminine energy, and then you've got the middle pillar as well. So Kabbalah, for me, it fits everything, whether you feel more masculine or drawn to masculine energies, or you feel more feminine or drawn to more feminine energies. Doesn't really matter because we cover it all in the tree. It's all relevant energy that we're working with. So we're neither one side or the other. We're not any more one religion or the other. However, if you're very staunch in your beliefs that there is nothing higher than us, that there is no source of energy, then it's going to be tricky. So that's where I stand with it, and that's how I explain it to people. I've taught people from all kinds of religions, all kinds of backgrounds, skeptics, people in the police, people in the government. I've taught mums, I've coached business women, I've coached men, I've coached rock stars, I've coached all sorts of people. And it really fits with any belief system because the way that it's laid out and the way that we understand it fits in every system. So it just works that way.
Now, you mentioned that you saw energy as a child. Was it frightening to you? And did you tell anyone? And how did they react?
Occasionally it was frightening. And when I was very young, I suffered what I would call spiritual attacks. Before I learned how to protect myself when I was very young, sort of 4 or 5 years old, I remember having quite horrific experiences, especially overnight in the house that I lived in. My parents were a lot more scared than I was. My mother was a little bit religious. She always said, God's got your back. God's always looking after you. But we didn't attend church every week.
Right.
However, she did have me reading the Bible from a very young age in church because the spirits taught me how to read. So I could read before I could walk. And I was kind of this sort of prodigy child, and she would have me reading from the Bible from a very young age. So I had this understanding through my spiritual connections from really young that they weren't all nice. And sometimes I experienced problems with that from a young age. And it was really when I started school and the spirits were coming into the room in the classroom, and it's as if they sort of look and see who can see me, who can I talk to? And I'd see them and make eye contact and then have a conversation with them. And it was then that I realized the other children weren't seeing what I could see. And as I say, by age sort of 9, I was looking up protection ways to protect myself through witchcraft, through visualization, through sort of working with my aura. I was doing all of that very young because I realized that there was a dangerous aspect to it from a young age. So yes, I have experienced some negative energies over the time.
And what do you think about now? I'm sure you've heard that many people say that the world is moving faster and that a lot of these, I don't know if you want to say beings or um, other entities are here more often. Do you believe that that possibly is the case, that that's really what's going on, that more people are seeing things that they had not perhaps seen before?
I love this question. And I think there is somewhat of a divergence happening right now. So, and I would say around the time, I would say from about 3 years ago, I think it began then. And it coincides actually with AI coming into our lives the way that it has done. And this sort of fear of AI entities or AI energies. And of course, we've been aware of energies from other planetary systems for a very long time. Now, it's, I know people that claim to be from these planetary systems. I know people that claim to be in conversation with these beings from other planetary systems. And it's not work that I personally do, but I don't disbelieve it. But I think there's a lot of people that are unfortunately in a state of paranoia from the way that the world is, from the fear that's pumped into us day in, day out. And I think there's a lot of confusion about it. So I think, yes, some people are certainly working that way. These are the types of energies that I have experienced, but they're not energies that I work very closely with. The energies that I work with are more connected with the tree of life. And I don't really kind of say to them, where have you come from? Show me a direction, or show me, show me a constellation of where you're communicating from. It's almost like I'm meeting them halfway. And the tree of life is a map of not just our own energy, but it's a map of the spirit planes. And so when I'm working with the tree, I'm traveling to those places on the tree, which are predetermined places, meeting places, if you like. And there are temples within those places where we meet with beings, we meet with the angelic forces and demonic energies. If that's what you want to work with, you get a choice, you don't have to. But all of these energies that exist within these worlds on the tree, each world has its own theme. Each world has its own teachings and its own sort of environment that you step into. And you initially start with the 10 worlds on the tree. And these are places that we go to convene, we go to converse, we go, we sort of assemble there, if you like, and we communicate with these energies there. So for me personally, I don't think of it as this is an energy communicating with me from this constellation as such. I'm just taking the energy and conversing and exchanging and learning and getting the information that's available there. So that's my point of view of it. I never sort of poo-poo anybody's experiences, because who am I to say that someone's experience isn't real? But I'm very aware that there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of false information out there. And, a lot of people that very readily go down rabbit holes and beliefs that they don't necessarily check, or they don't have the tools to actually confirm whether something is real or not, or whether it is what it says it is. And part of my work is making sure that people like you and I do have the tools available to discern what we're communicating with, discern the energy that's coming through and talking to us. Because when I talk about guides and masters, sometimes I get a funny look and they say, well, who could possibly be a master of you? That's a bit odd, but actually they're masters because they've learned so much. They've lived so many lifetimes, they're not necessarily going to reincarnate again, but they're there to impart information to us. So it's a fine line actually between what you are actually experiencing, and things like paranoia or believing something just because somebody said it. We must all stand in our own strength and our own foundation and know that what we are doing is safe, but also real. Because a lot of people would say this is fantasy. This is, it's an imagination. It's archetypes. It can't possibly be real. But for many of us, it is real. And whether that's part of our deeper psyche, it's still real. Is it part of our joint collective experience? Well, it's still real. Is it part of a religious experience? Is it part of a spiritual experience? Well, it's still real. So I stay very open-minded actually about everything. And I've heard some crazy things.
Yes, and there are very diverse
Yeah.
ideas out there, right? Very diverse ideas. Yeah, there are. Now, do you think that one, for example, say someone wants to work with you, I mean, must one have guides and masters? Is that a path that someone has to be on? Or if people do have it, that's fine. If they don't, that's okay as well.
Well, I believe that everybody does, but not everybody's in communication with them. And sometimes I'm sort of the middleman. So, somebody will say something like, do you know, I just can't get relationships right. For some reason, things aren't working out for me, and they come to me, and then I can say, okay, this is what's happening. So I would look at their astrological birth chart, look at their human design, look at where they are on the tree of life. This is all mapping that I do according to someone's energy. And then we can pinpoint what the problems are. And it's then that the guides that are connected to that client will come forward with the information. And sometimes I can say, look, your guide is saying this. And some people say, I don't want to know what my guide says, and I don't want any communication with any spirits. Just give me the way forward. And that's fine. So this is something that I discuss with clients before I start working with them and say, how much do you want me to tell you? What do you really want here? Do you just want the answers? Do you just want how to move forward? Or are you looking to communicate and open this door for yourself to receive that information? Because I'm all about empowering people. And I love coaching people, but I love to give them the strength to carry that through themselves. I don't like to be the only one with the answers, the only one that they can come to for help. I like to empower my clients and make sure that they understand what's happening when they're working with me, but also to be able to take that with them. So it's not necessary for them to work with guides, masters, or tarot or astrology. They don't need to know anything. I can still help them. It helps if I've got their birth details.
Right.
That's the sort of foundation of what I'm working with. Time doesn't matter really, because I can work with that, but birth date and place of birth, and I'm set, but I can also read people's energies just from talking to them.
Right.
So, there's always a way forward. There's always a way to work with people. Some people come with me to learn Kabbalah. Some people come with me as a client who needs something fixed. And that's the manifestation work. It's, I need more money to flow. There's a blockage somewhere with something like self-worth, or something like a previous experience with money, or value, or, something like that. Sometimes it's to do with relationships. Sometimes it's to do with slightly higher things. It might be a past life experience that's affecting that person. So I'm qualified in past life regression as well. So that can come into the work. So there's all kinds of different ways to work like this. And if you don't like tarot, for example, we don't need to touch tarot. We can work with the tree of life and the birth chart.
Now, when you're speaking about all this, so say, for example, so I know, of course, we've been in contact for quite a number of years through social media. So how does one work with you? Are you working with people online and in person, or is it with a group or individual? And then how do people contact you? And I do want you to speak about the groups, because you do have active groups, you do have YouTube. So can you explain a little bit to the audience about how you're working with people?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So the best way to get into my world is through social media and YouTube. Those are the best places to find me, Cassandra Raven, everywhere. Obviously, that's the introductive path to get to know me better, get to know what I'm talking about, get to know what it's all about. So a lot of people start off and they've never heard of Kabbalah. They don't know tarot. They don't really know how these things help us, and how it can be used as a tool for ourselves through life. So that's the first instance to get into my world. The second thing that I have is a private online membership. And my membership starts at £9 a month. That's the entry level. And at that level, I teach tarot. And also we celebrate the Sabbats through the year together. So it's like we're walking alongside each other. I'm teaching tarot. I'm dropping some Kabbalah teachings in there as well as we go. I'm in there every week with tarot lessons. There's a community there, so you can get involved with the community. And there's lots of topic discussions in there, as well as the lives that I do in there and the pre-recorded teaching that I do as well. There's lots in there for the investment. It's really, really good. And also we get to have those celebrations through the year as well. And I help you to tune into the energies of the year as we go through the wheel of the year. And we work with the moon phases as well. So all of that is in that initial membership. The next level up in my membership is a little bit more. It's £35 a month. And in there, I go deeper into Kabbalah, deeper into the tarot teachings and Kabbalah tarot specifically. And in there, I also run masterclasses once a month on different topics around tarot and Kabbalah and esoteric topics as well. And then I have a higher level again, which is very personal. It's a very small group. It's a very intimate group with me where I go live once a week. I bring across channeled messages in that group. And in that one, I do the coaching. So if you want to come in with group coaching with me, that's a good place to start. And then on top of that, I have lots of other offers where I can work one-to-one. And you'll find all of those offers on cassandraraven.co.uk. All of it's on there.
And I will put that all, I always like to say, I will list all of that with the URLs in the description. And I do urge people to just click on the link, because it's always an easy way to find the guest speaker. This way, it's at their fingertips. And of course, I find this so fascinating. So I, of course, want to offer it to everyone and let them know that everything is out there. And of course, they can definitely hear you speak on Facebook, because you do some shorts in there as well. And I do urge them to listen to the YouTube channel, which I will have that link as well, so that people can hear what you have to say. And
Right.
oh, you're welcome. And so where do you see, with all this that you're doing, and I know that you're always quite busy because I can see you on social media, where do you see yourself going from here? Are there books? Are there tarot cards in the future? Because I know that those projects are, as long as what I've heard from other guest speakers, those are tremendously large projects. Do you have any of that you want to do?
Yeah, I do. I have a tarot deck coming out. It should be out by the end of this year, the Kabbalah Tarot. And that is a tarot deck that I'm creating with an artist. So I've been very lucky to team up with an artist who creates beautiful images. I actually have a little example of one of my tarot card. The cards won't be this big.
Right. No, right. Lovely.
One of the That's the sort of artwork that he does. And we've been working on this tarot deck for 4 years, just over 4 years now. Every card is hand drawn, pencil on paper, hand drawn, following a lengthy discussion about what images need to go into the card, what story I want to tell in each card, all of the Kabbalistic aspects that go into every card. So we've got the Hebrew in there, we've got the astrology in there, all of the symbology in there is based around Kabbalah. And I know a lot of people like the Rider-Waite deck. So it's set out very similarly to the Rider-Waite deck. It is a standard tarot deck. So you'll find your major arcana, your court cards and your number cards in there, 78 cards in total. And when I learned Kabbalah, I studied with the Thoth deck, which is the Aleister Crowley deck. And so what I've done is I've kind of taken those and sort of merged them a little bit. I wanted a deck that was beautiful really beautiful to look at. I wanted anybody to be able to pick up the deck and just look at the pictures and feel the energy just from the pictures. Even if you don't know any symbology or anything like that, I want people to be able to just connect with it because it's beautiful. That was my first, requirement, and it had to be a Kabbalistic deck because that's my area of expertise. And then all the symbology in the deck, you'll see it on there nice and clearly. So you're not picking up a card and guessing, or trying to remember what's the astrological symbol for this card. They're all on there. So I wanted to make it easy for people to learn and pick up those teachings. And I'm writing a book that goes alongside that as well, which will have your journey through the tarot in it as a tool for self-development and also a tool for readings. So we've got it all packed in there, in the book and the tarot deck as well. So fingers crossed, we should be releasing this by the end of this year. It will be on Kickstarter. So there is a sign up.
That's what I was going to ask. Yes. Oh, so I can actually, right, because that comes ahead of time, right? A Kickstarter comes ahead of time. Yes, because I have signed up for some people's projects that way. So I can put a link for that as well. I will offer that. Yes, because I would love to have that. Oh, you're quite welcome. I would love to have that. That's very interesting. A tarot deck, but has Kabbalah on it. That's very interesting. I don't know how many of them are out there, if they are even out there, but it will be definitely a wonderful tool to have.
And a great teaching tool for, so when I do the tarot lessons every week in my community, I use the Rider-Waite deck, the Thoth deck, and the Kabbalah tarot deck, and I compare each card from, if we're looking at, say, the King of Cups, I'll look at the King or Knight of Cups across those decks and compare them so that no matter which deck you're working with, you're getting the information for that particular card, what it's all about, and all of the information behind it and how to use it in a reading and all that sort of thing. So I like to teach with those three decks because so many people use the Rider-Waite and they feel disconnected with it because it's very difficult for a lot of people, especially in modern times, to relate to a Jacobean man in tights. It's kind of like, well, who's this guy, and why does he look so happy? Yet it's a card that isn't a good energy card.
Right.
So I wanted my cards to be really clear with the energy of each card, really obvious. So yeah, it's exciting. So that's coming up. That's my big project: the tarot deck and the book.
And that's a large project already, and 4 years. Yes, I can see how it would take 4 years to work on something like that. And so what else is in the works, perhaps? Do you have any, because you're almost there this year? Is there anything else that you want to do?
Yeah. So after this particular project, I already have another book in the works that I'm sort of half working on. When I get a chance to do it now, I'll dedicate myself to it fully once the deck is out. But that's to do with working with the Tree of Life. And I feel that's the next natural step for people. If they pick up the deck and they want to know how to work with the Tree of Life, I think a book on that would be the ideal next step. Now, my jam is understanding polarity. It's understanding energetics. So I talk a lot about manifestation. The Tree of Life is manifestation. It's how manifestation works. So when we work with the Tree of Life, we are manifesting. So I teach working with the tree and allowing the tree to work through you, because the tree is inside us and it's outside of us. It's the macrocosm and the microcosm. It's the outside and the inside. But what that comes along with is our difficulties. It comes along with our shadow side. It comes along with the problems that we face in life. And what the tree does is it shines light into the darkness for us. But we have to be aware of the darkness first. We have to be aware of where we struggle, what trips us up in each of those areas on the tree. So you've got 10 worlds on the tree, 10 areas of life, 10 areas of yourself to learn about and to refine so that the universal energy can move through you and that area will be cleared. And when we work with the tree of life like this, it shows us where we're stuck. It shows us where we have issues within ourselves, things that we find difficult. And often it's very clear from our astrological birth chart which part of the tree we'll struggle with, because the planetary correspondences show us. So personally, my Mars, for example, is in Cancer. And that's a really terrible place for Mars to be.
Mhm.
So when I got to the part of the tree of life where it's all about that Mars energy and fighting and forcing and pushing and judgment and all of those scary, fiery, masculine things, that was the area of the tree where I struggled the most. But learning about that, learning all about those energetics and what it means within myself, what it means with the experiences that I have in life, meant that I was able to navigate it, untangle it all, understand myself better, and work with the energy that is naturally within me, rather than forcing something, rather than trying to be like everyone else or to deal with things the way other people deal with them, understanding my energy and how I need to deal with these things. And it's interesting, when you're working on the tree, each area sort of brings things forward in life for you to use as teaching lessons.
Mhm.
And this is what scares people a little bit about working with the tree. Often people say, "Oh, it's scary," and it is a little bit scary, because you'll look at one area of the tree and you'll be shown what you struggle with. So
Mhm.
someone will say something, or a situation will arise, and it's just a little test. It's just a little, how are we dealing with this? What's our reaction to this situation in life? How do we respond to these things? And what would be a better way to deal with it? What would be a better way to work with the energy here, according to our own personal energies?
Mhm.
And that's why the tree is a little bit scary for people. So we have those shadow sides, we have the dark and the light. And my jam is understanding both.
Mhm.
I don't think that it's ever useful to only be on one side.
Right.
It's never really useful just to take all the light and fluffy stuff.
Mhm.
And it's never really useful to only focus on the dark. What we want is a balance, an understanding of how to manipulate both, how to use both,
Mhm.
how to shine light in darkness, and how to embrace darkness when we feel that that is maybe part of ourselves and we're not willing to let
Mhm.
go. But we want to embrace that as part of
Mhm.
ourselves. So for me, working with the Tree of Life is about both of those
Mhm.
sides, and the book will address both sides of the tree,
Mhm.
the light, the dark, the shadow
Mhm.
side, and how to work with both of those types of energies.
Now, would you suggest to um, others, the audience, people that may be listening, would your birth chart be something where you would start first? Like
Mm.
somebody who's listening and they might think, oh, wait a minute, this is too heavy. This is very heavy, because esoteric topics are heavy. This is too heavy. I don't have all this time, because many people say I don't have this time to devote to myself, or I don't have all this downtime, which of course, as we know, if you don't devote time to yourself, you can't devote time to anyone else, because you have to come first, right? You have to love yourself and you have to work on yourself first. But many people just can't wrap their head around that. So would that be the easiest way to start, like a birth chart? Because many people don't know anything about that.
It really is. And there's lots of places online where you can get your birth chart for free. So I think there's so many of them. There's so many of them. You'll Google it and you'll see them. And you just put in your date of birth, your time of birth,
Mhm.
and your place of birth. If you don't
Mhm.
know your time of birth, just put midday.
Mhm.
And it will tell you what those things mean. So it will
Mhm.
show you this lovely circular diagram,
Mhm.
which is a photograph of the sky
Yes.
at the moment that you were born, from the place where you were born, and the planets' positions will be on this sort of map that you'll see. And in most cases, those free apps that you can do
Mhm.
will then tell you what each thing means. So you'll see where your planet was in the sky when you were
Mhm.
born, and it means something for you. And it will tell you for free
Mhm.
those meanings. That's the
Right.
best place to start. Most people know their sun sign. Most people
Mhm.
know, I'm a Virgo, I'm a
Mhm.
Libran,
Mhm.
I'm a Pisces.
Right.
Most people know that. A lot of people know the top three now, which is your sun sign,
Mhm.
your moon sign, and your ascendant.
Mhm.
So that's the sort of horizon when you were born.
Right.
Most people know those. And when you know those top three, that's kind of like, those are the three biggest energies that you're working with. And then dig a little deeper and you'll find out which planets are not working so well for you. And here's a really good tip. If you can find one, and I'm not sure this is available online, but this is something I do with my clients, is I look at how much of each element you have in your makeup. Now, the planets are connected to elements, the four elements. Okay. And for instance, I have 0 earth in my birth chart, absolutely 0 earth. So when it comes to shopping, cooking, day-to-day stuff, I just can't. I can't. I'm rubbish at anything to do with earthy type things. But knowing that means that I start my day by saying, what is the earth I need to get done before I can focus on my huge amount of air that I have, which is all about the logic and the learning, the mind, and, all of that stuff. So what do I need to do with my earth before I can indulge in my air? And that's a really simple way as well to get to know yourself, is knowing the elements within you and how much of each of those elements you have can really tell you about your personality. My partner has a huge amount of fire, and that's action. So
I know, I'm a fire too. I'm a fire too. And this is a fire house. We're all fire in the house. You can imagine, you can just imagine what's going on here.
I can imagine the chaos. So you act before you think, before you weigh up any of the consequences, before you do anything practical. It's acting, taking that action and reacting. That's a very fiery energy as well. So, with all my air fueling all of his fire, because you look at how elements work together. And this is very interesting when you look at relationships and how you relate to someone else. So here's me with all my fire, with all my air, and he comes along and his fire is reacting to my air. And suddenly, we're up in the clouds having a whale of a time, and nobody knows what on earth we're talking about or doing, So it's fun. It's fun to do these things.
Now, if someone wants to work with you, do you suggest they come with at least the knowledge of the 3 major areas, or is that something you can do for them? Because if they don't know where to go.
Yeah, you can come to me. As I say, I've coached complete skeptics, people who need evidence in order to understand something. So I've worked with people in the police here, and they're very evidence-based in their minds, and they come to me wanting to know what's going on with this. Why is this part of my life falling apart, or why am I not able to do this? And because I've got so much air, I'm able to logically, I can pull down this energy of the spiritual energy and turn it into something logical and say, well, you have very little water. That's why you're struggling with the way that you emotionally respond to things, because that's the last thing that you do. And so it's easy to work with people as long as I've got their birth chart, information. I can go anywhere with that, and they don't need to know anything. So any client that comes to me can come with no knowledge whatsoever, and we can fix something, we can release energy, we can manifest, we can get things moving in life, we can change lives. People have done all kinds of crazy, incredible things with this teaching. And it has a real life impact. I've had people that have achieved their dreams through this. And sometimes it's to do with the thoughts, sometimes it's the feelings, sometimes it's the subconscious, sometimes it's the soul, and sometimes it's the spirit. But we work on all of those levels in order to manifest what people want. And as I say, some people come to me just to learn Kabbalah, which again, something quite different. But to be able to do it themselves, that's something that I do as well. So clients that come to me for coaching, my coaching offers are all on my website. You'll see those on my website. And then if you're more interested in learning a little bit and getting coached, my membership is the place to come. No prior experience necessary.
Yes, that's wonderful. And so in parting, what would you like to say to the audience or to anyone listening out there, especially those that maybe really want to get involved with this and perhaps were uneasy or frightened or confused? What would you say to them?
So firstly, and this is going to sound a bit broad maybe, but the real key, I feel, is to understand that this is part of you. This system, the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, it's a part of you no matter who you are. So we are always, all of us, operating somewhere on the Tree of Life. It's almost like a board game, a snakes and ladders, where you can go up and down and all around. It's not a one and done. You can study it, but it will take decades to fully study it. You can experience it, and it can take a few months to experience it, a few weeks to experience it. You can go as far as you want. You can stop whenever you want. You're not stuck in it. It's not something that you're permanently attached to. You can learn a little bit and say, okay, that's enough for me, and be on your merry way. That's absolutely fine. The main thing is that because it's part of us, it's part of who we are, it's part of you, is to not be afraid of it. It's not, and I think the fear comes from perhaps people talking about the angelic forces and the demonic forces, and that stuff is scary. It's very big, and you don't have to work that way. You can simply work with the Tree of Life as a map for your progress. You don't have to enter the temples. You don't have to do, the sort of guided experiences or anything like that. You can simply focus on the energy of a planet or a color. That will get you in the vibration. It will get you on the frequency of what you want to achieve. So there are many ways of working with this, and you really can go as deep as you want or just dip your toe in. And if it doesn't suit you, then that's fine as well. What Kabbalah does, and the Tree of Life, it gives us a structure to our experiences, particularly our spiritual experiences. So many people come to me saying things like, I was meditating and I had a frightening experience. What was that about? Or I'm too scared to work with tarot because I don't like the devil card, or I don't like the death card. There are these, because it covers everything. You're going to find everything there at some point. And because people don't know where they are spiritually sometimes, when I pull up the Tree of Life and I say, look, the very bottom of the tree is earth and the physical realm. And the second that you step up from that onto the tree, you're in the spirit worlds. And very, very low on the tree, we have our guides, we have our loved ones that have passed over, and spiritual energies. That's the first thing you encounter. And then there are many, many levels above that. And it's all there to help us learn. It's all there to help us understand our earthly experiences. So as a tool for manifestation, it's amazing because it shows us where energy is getting stuck. As a tool for self-development, it's incredible because it shows us every part of ourselves, the light and the dark within us, and how we can work with these within us, not necessarily external energies, not necessarily a demonic force or an angelic force. You don't have to go there. You don't have to go into those realms and experience those things. We just experience those concepts within our lives. Overcoming addiction is a really big one. I've helped lots of people to overcome addiction through this. And it's through using these energies, working through these energies is ever so good for that. So to not be afraid. What you're afraid of really is the darkness that you can't control. And the darkness that we can't control is really within ourselves more than externally. There are horrors in the world. There are terrible things happening in the world. There are awful people in charge and awful things happening in our world. And in my opinion, what Kabbalah does is it connects us to what's real. It connects us to being human with a spiritual energy. We are walking around.
That everybody use it, right? That's what I say. Would that everybody be on that Tree of Life? We may not have the issues we have.
Exactly. If people were more aware, awareness is one of the main things. But also, it's about understanding that these awful things are out in the world and we don't all have to go out and fix them. That's the other thing, that some of us are fighters. Some of us that are fire signs are definitely fighters, and they're frontline fighting. I want justice. I want the right thing. And some of us are teachers like me, and some of us are healers, and we shouldn't push ourselves into roles that don't suit ourselves. We shouldn't all try to fight. really many of us aren't equipped to deal with knowing everything that's going on in the world. Some of us are better equipped to bring up a family, to raise good people, to feed people, to heal people. And that is incredibly important work. It's essential work. And I think at the moment we're very pushed into knowing everything that's going on in every country, every atrocity that's going on, and it can stunt our work. It can hold us back. Some of us, it can hold us back. So really this work is about understanding who you are. What's the best that I can do in my life to make the world better? Because whatever you do that is making the world better has such an incredible knock-on ripple effect in the world that we cannot possibly be aware of how far our energy travels. It travels so far, and the tiniest kindness makes a massive difference in the world, and we must realize the importance of the tiny things that we do. I've worked with people who run animal shelters, and the energy that they put out into the world is phenomenal, and it's ground level work, so it's knowing ourselves, knowing what we should be doing, knowing what we can do to make the world better. And the Tree of Life shows us that as well. It's such a huge topic, such a huge subject. And I want to be the person that can say very clearly, here's where you start. Here's the easiest way to begin, which is why I started the YouTube channel. It's why I started with manifestation, because most people understand the concept of manifestation. Most people understand that they want to achieve something, do something, be something, have something, but something's in the way. And most people get that it's energetic in some way. So that was the easiest way to talk about the Tree of Life and to help people to have an introduction to the tree. Because a lot of the books that are out there are not easy reads.
Right.
You pick up any book on Kabbalah, it's not an easy read. It's a different language. It's difficult to understand. And in my YouTube videos, I don't even use the word Sephiroth, which is the word for each circle on the tree. I just say circle, this red circle, this blue circle. It's a world that we're able to go into, and I leave it at that. So starting as simply as possible. And it doesn't hurt my ego to keep it simple. It doesn't, I've got 25 years of learning here. I don't need to throw it all out there to prove anything. I would rather bring people in at a very simple level and graduate them in learning if they want to continue, because so few people really do want to. Who wants to work on themselves?
Well, that's it, right?
Who wants to take responsibility? So there are very few people that really do. But just learning the tarot, just learning energetics, just learning what the Tree of Life is and using the tree. All of this can be taken on a very simple level, and you will see results from a very simple level.
Well, Cassandra, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. This is such a fascinating topic. It was so interesting. And like you said, it's such a vast topic and it can get so in depth. But I wanted to make sure that people realize that they can, in fact, get on board and work with this for themselves. And as you said, the tasks that they perform and the way in which they live their life, it's just as important as everyone else's, and to not be afraid of that. So thank you again, Cassandra.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.